Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS Winter. We have one series left over. One series to finish out the day. Who will be the second player to advance on from this group? We'll have to find out just a little bit. My name is Fear Dragon. I'm joined by In Control here at the desk. And In Control, I have the most important question. When you decide to spawn as Terran, as I do know you're known as the Watcher sometimes in your ladder games, and you lose the game, but your opponent offensive GGs. Okay. You have to float your command center to the corner of the map, as is indicated through Artosis's rules of conduct. Fighting. But doesn't it look a lot better when you actually have the special War Chest Command Center skin to strike fear into your opponent to make them feel less confident about actually engaging your command center for just a little bit longer?
Bigger satellite dish makes them kind of ponder if you're not doing something over there. And of course, the Special Forces suggest that maybe this is all part of a bigger plan in general.
So guys, if you are interested in that exact strategy, consider picking up a war chest. 25% of the proceeds go toward esports initiatives for 2019. Definitely absolutely worth it. And with that being said, let's talk about this next series.
Before we do, though, I have another tidbit from the general chat of Battle.net. Could I share some wisdom that's being kind of spewed there?
Well, I do have to ask. I know that Twitch chat is GM.
Yeah.
What is general chat?
It's another level. It's kind of a different dimensional thing.
They're basically all Code S?
Yes. So Manbrave in general chat is having a conversation with someone that's talking about how they're actually just in all caps saying they need to study. To which he replies, or she, "Don't study too much. You will never forget anything, or you will forget everything if you overstudy." And he misspelled about most of those words. So
overstudied the words.
Yeah, he might have overstudied. So this is a guy speaking from experience. And I just, want to share that with everybody. Or do study.
It's not bad advice when it comes to preparing for a match of StarCraft.
What is overstudying,
if you over-prepare for a game of StarCraft to get in your own head, I'm doing my best to make it
I know you're trying.
I'm really
trying.
trying.
Nice of you. I'm just trying to, I'm imagining what is overstudying? Like, what do you hit where it's like, I know all this information perfectly, and when it comes up on the test, I will know the answer? And then what do you study that after that it all of a sudden becomes, I know nothing?
I did study really late for a test once, and then I overslept for the test and failed the class.
I feel like that's oversleeping as opposed to...
But it was oversleeping due to overstudying.
No, it wasn't overstudying. It was late studying, right? Like,
that's true.
Should have started
Actually,
earlier.
I should have started earlier.
Yeah.
I did start studying that day.
Okay.
Starting down here at the bottom.
My own heart.
Right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Terran player. He is Vindicta. And his opponent spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Zerg player from Team Chivo. It is Cham.
Exciting moment here, as I do think Vindicta showed a level of play that was quite nice. This is a guy that if he were to upset Cham here and eliminate him, would put his name on that radar, so to speak. I don't know that anyone would be looking at Vindicta as someone that's going to go to the top 6 or something like that, but beating Cham, qualifying to that second group stage, would be a big deal.
Absolutely. He has been one of those players that's qualified for seasons of Challenger in the past, but never been able to make deep runs or make it out of the group or anything like that. So this would be a big result for him if he's able to beat someone like Cham.
Yeah.
And conversely, it would be really disappointing for a player like Cham, who you were talking about. He was kind of one of the favorites to do really well in the group today, and is one of the people that we definitely look at to say, like, hey, this guy can go really far depending on how he's shaping up this year.
It's a tough spot. I don't know if it's tough is the right word, but it's a funny spot that pro gamers find themselves in. When you get to a certain level and you're really good, people will absolutely talk about your shortcomings, right? Like if there's a pro gamer that's never really qualifying for stuff, you're not really doing that much, you'll get complimented for taking maps. It's like, holy cow, look at you, you're taking a series. But when you're someone, and I would say it's almost mostly unfair for Cham because he's not Snoot level or anything like that, right? But he is very good, but hasn't won tournaments. But he's at that cusp of like, hey, if you get eliminated here, that's really disappointing.
Yeah, I actually had a great conversation with M. Canning about this at Cheesadelphia because he faced off versus Neeb, and before the match he was saying, this kind of sucks for Neeb because if he wins, then he has nothing gained whatsoever. It's basic, and if he loses, he has everything to lose. People will cite that match, and I definitely am part of the reason people continue to cite that match, as M. Canning beating Neeb, and how that was a really big result, and how that was really bad for Neeb and great for M. Canning. Yeah. It's a it's a lose or do nothing situation.
Yeah. And that is a position of privilege, though, right? Like, if Neeb was a worse player that didn't have as much success, then nobody would have that kind of tough opinion for him. But it takes being really good to be put in an even harder spot. The expectation for Serral, for instance, this year is if like his first loss will be the bigger deal than who won.
Yeah, heavy is the crown the king wears.
Yeah.
And in this situation between these two players, Cham is definitely going to be the one with the crown. We'll see if we can keep it as we end up seeing Drone moving over here with a couple of Lings. And, okay, for a second, I was like, wait a second, did he just fake a third with the Drone there? No. Sends it back.
It was a heavy investment, though. The Queen's all the way over there, too.
Yeah, and I guess the 4 Lings also being able to pick off.
It's not the biggest of deals.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's kind of funny.
The Reaper and the Hellion are going to be staying at home. This might be because King's Cove specifically has those 2 entrances. You can't really fully wall super early on, so.
By the way, that Overlord spot, I'm just now noticing that somehow. I mean, I played this map a bunch and stuff, but somehow I'm looking at this and I'm going, map makers, can we have a talk? Look at that spot.
It doesn't have a closer Overlord spot, though, right? Or no,
it doesn't need a closer one. That sees both the chokes.
It sees both the chokes, but it doesn't see like the gas geysers and stuff. I'm thinking from a
come on.
I'm thinking from a Protoss perspective. What's so bad about it?
Oof, you've been hurt. I can feel it. You look at that and you say it's not so bad. It sees everything.
Wouldn't it be the opposite? Wouldn't you have been the one that feels hurt?
I've come full circle. I've been hurt so bad that it's now upsetting me. It's like it's the Protoss suffrage of 2019.
Let's talk really quickly about the concussive shell upgrade and the fact that there's an armory coming down. Hellions, there's 5 of them on the map. This is like one of those kind of old school pushes that we used to see a long time ago.
No, it's worse than that, Rovi. It's 1 medevac and 3 Marauders. We've seen it actually yesterday. And sometimes a person puts a single Marine in there. Yeah, we did. It's so weird. It's cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's like literally 3 Marauders in a medevac, and I just can't get past how weird that is.
Well, it does prevent some of these Queens from maybe running back, but I guess the Transfuser was mostly relying on there. It's going to be a lot of Lings, and the Hellions are going to have to deal with that as they turn into Hellbats eventually. But
oh my god, it's exactly what I said. 3 Marauders, 1 Marine. And
yeah.
Look for the medevac. Show me.
I'm trying to find it. There it is.
Oh, I didn't put the 1 Marine in there. He messed up. This is going to get wrecked. Nice try, Vindicta.
Can't kill the Overlords anymore?
Oh, the 1 Marine just adds so much DPS to it, man. It's the little lieutenant, too. He fires up the Marauders. So they got to guard their little brother.
Viking going to be able to land and try and get a little bit extra damage done. The Lings getting in on top of these Hellbats, but obviously not doing too much so far. The Queens not actually getting messed with too much right now. The Marauders on the opposite side of the Hellbats. The Viking gets picked off. And this army is just charging headfirst into the natural.
Yep. Medevac gets quite low, though. And does end up dying. Good spread on the Queens. They're giving chase in the background. He needs to save the drones, because so far this has been a great defense from Cham. And it's going to be a good defense, but if he gets some drones killed, it'll be a problem. Now he's taking some AoE damage, though, from those flames.
Yeah, but the Lings are cleaning everything up, and like you said, that is it. And again, I want to point out 0 workers killed by Vindicta.
Yeah.
That is
not bueno.
Yeah, and of course you delay a lot of other things behind this. Now, I like that Vindicta started up other things behind this. He got up a 3rd command center during that attack. He got up started up an armory upgrade, but
I don't know though. He is adding factories, so it is going to be mech again. The Banshee speed upgrade I've been on board with, but doing it after a Hellbat timing attack with Marauders, I'm a little bit less keen on that personally.
Well, I'm not sure if it's going to actually have too much time to pan out anyways, Jeff, as we do have Nidus Storm coming down. The Hellion's also going to get potentially cleaned up right here, shutting down any map vision that Vindicta even had to maybe get some scouting information about this. This is pretty bad.
Not looking good, but I like Cham's decisiveness. He takes the lead, defends the all-in, and then any kind of gamble, like an aggressive 3rd here or some tech switch back at home for Vindicta, not today, as Robbie was saying. The Nidus is a pretty quick answer. And in fact, well, okay, here's fine, but I would have even liked it inside the main.
Well, as I learned today, they're confirmed with the Nathanius, the Nidus Worm is going to take even less damage versus the Banshee, because the Banshee has 2 attacks, and the armor applies twice. Yeah. 3rd base getting lifted up. Cham saying, went ahead, don't let your opponent catch back up.
That's
it's a lesser known or toasted.
I just liked your lack of confidence in saying that. You're like, went ahead. Don't
let your opponent catch back up.
Yeah. I read that children's book once, I think.
bait Nidus Worm in the main base. Only unloads a couple of roaches, but it does buy time to go to the natural. Hasn't killed that many workers just yet, and we're starting to see another Nidus Worm come down.
Yeah.
This one's immediately being jumped on top of, and I still think this is okay for Cham, but he keeps losing these Nidus Worms.
Yeah.
He's going to be losing all 4 of these queens now. This is not the attack he wanted.
No. It's a little bit funny that he keeps trying to cram him through there, actually. Like, he's definitely still ahead, but it's in this weird spot of, like, you're kind of siphoning off that lead?
When ahead, get blown behind.
I guess so. You could say that. I do like the crease right over here. I like that the queens drop some tumors.
This is going to be nice.
Extra annoyance.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier for us to say in hindsight, oh, you know, those Nidus Worms in the main base and the natural clearly didn't work. Should have just unloaded everything over by this base, but yeah, it is definitely starting to hurt him a little bit. And now with the Sea Shank on the high ground, he doesn't actually have the high ground vision with an Overlord over here, because I guess that Overlord from earlier got picked off by a Viking. So kind of has to cram back into the Nidus Worm and bounce out.
It is only on the 3 bases. No, excuse me, 4 bases taken.
Yep.
I do like his saturation. He's hitting about 80 drones. Sees a lot of Banshee still, so the Hydra Den's going to be obviously awesome. And facing mech, we'll probably see that Roach Hydra Viper.
He didn't get the creep tumor. So, yeah, 78 workers. Cham still has a big lead behind this, like you were saying. And having Hive Tech nearly, or about halfway finished up is very, very nice, forcing another scan before the 3rd command center can land. These mech compositions are pretty costly, so it's going to take Vindicta a little bit more work to try and get that economy back up so it can actually start pumping out units from all these factories.
Mech off a 2 base. Tough spot to be. And the 3rd was, I mean, your 3rd would be an orbital. But again, this is the part that I'm a little bit, I don't know. Well, we'll see. Maybe he can drag this back. He's only down 25 or so supply. And the Banshees do have some ability here. I guess the part you hear me waffling on is the decision to take a 3rd go mech off of a failed timing attack. If he does big economic damage there, he probably has the space to do it. But I don't know. What do you do? Go bio from there? Probably not. So he was in a tough spot anyways.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of hard in general to bounce back from a failed timing attack. Well, the Banshees do have to retreat back home. I do have to say one thing that's going actually quite well for Vindicta is the fact that when you go for that fast armory and start investing in those upgrades nice and early on, you can get a nice little upgrade lead versus a Zerg player who's going to have a Hive done before he has an Evolution Chamber started, which is not something you see every day. But that is going to be a very solid upgrade lead for Vindicta with a big scary mech army on the way.
Yeah.
Might not be so big or scary, though. It ends up bleeding out a lot of the units. The Cyclones actually trying to get some good damage done, and I mean, of course, we are still waiting to see if he adds on a bunch of Liberators and stuff, but not necessarily a super unsimilar composition to what Kelzer was going for. A lot of Cyclones, a lot of Hellions.
I think the best news for Vindicta, in my opinion, is that Cham, in that time, is only up on 4 bases, going on 5. No, it's on 5. Never mind.
Yeah, 5.
My eyes are not adjusting to this map very well. But even then, 5 bases, and he's adding a lot of stacked defenses, which I'm actually I'm okay with because of how fast the Banshees are, obviously, but that is an incurred tax, right? Like the speed Banshees don't really care about getting hit by a Spore Crawler, as long as you go back and repair, by the way. Yep. They either kill the Spore Crawler or just the damage output from it is less than what they're going to do to the drones and the couple of volleys that they put off. But that's kind of neither here nor there, and I heard you saying this earlier. The bank of Vindicta, I keep almost saying Vindicta, my bad. Vindicta is low. He's going to go for this malign 4th base, and we've seen this be a bit of a death trap, right? Like the 4th base you got to have really established to ever get a hold of.
And these Roaches and Hydras going to be poking on forward. The Overseer is here to start cleaning up those Banshees, even parasitic bombs being thrown down. So one more Banshee ends up falling before this base has to back on up. And Cham, pretty content with that damage he just did.
Yeah, he just killed a bunch of key units. And the tank on the high ground is like the only reason that Vindicta didn't just die there, basically. He's going to go back down here and try it again. The other nice thing here, too, though, is that the Vipers did use their energy, and the Terran are finding this flow, right? We talked about this in the Danius broadcast as well, where it's like, okay, well, in that time, you can take your space. Would be even better, though, is if you could pick off those Vipers, and then they have to be remade entirely.
Yeah. He's not really using a starport. Would you want to see things like Vikings and stuff? Or Okay.
Well, that's the thing. In this kind of matchup, I don't think you need 12 Vikings. It's not. You don't need to make the argument. I need those Vipers to never shoot. It's just that every time you fight, you need 2 or 3 of them to die. Because if they die, that prolongs and opens up the amount of time it takes between their next spell usage, as they have to get remade and suck down some energy. But also it taxes the Zerg a little bit more.
Yeah, spend that little gas bank that the Zerg player is trying to save up for maybe some other Hive Tech units.
Yeah.
Speaking of Hive Tech units, we do have a Spire on the way, and with Hive Tech already finished up a while ago. And, oh, actually a couple of the Vipers finally going down there. Nice target fires with the Cyclones. Those are manual target fires to get those Vipers.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. That's good.
And Siege Tank able to get some damage done, but it is finally going to go down. And this time, I don't think that there's any saving grace backup Siege Tank. So I guess there's one further back. And that's...
Or 2, actually.
Oh, yeah, there's another in the Planetary Fortress, but the space is going to be forced. Actually, no, it's killed.
Fourth base has been taken, but behind that is just a orbital. So what we didn't just see, but had another tank died and is not safeguarding that base any longer, well, that's a dead orbital, and it's a dead, fully saturated base. And then basically Vindicta is on 1 mining base, which would be just death. I mean, again, it's these kind of games are kind of funny because he's just like in this position and he's curled. This is the MMA fight where the ref would normally call it, right? Like the guy's not fighting back; he's just kind of surviving,
hanging in there. Yeah.
So for us as commentators, a little bit silly because we're like, well, what does he do from here? He's gonna, I guess, live 10 more minutes. He's doing the Goblin for sure.
Viper's pulling some of those siege tanks. It seems like those 2 siege tanks in the back are just going to be an annoying position for Cham to break, and this is the reality. He doesn't need to right now. He's already killing, like you said, key units, so he doesn't have to force his way up. Seems like he's going to try to this time, and the SCV is being pulled off the line. Signals that this may very well be the end? Question mark?
I mean, it is. It's just whether or not Vindicta knows that. Seriously, I'm not even being
weird.
I
know.
He's not mining off that base. He's got 3 tanks. He's in the position where he's like, okay, I need more tanks because that's why I'm living. But takes longer to build. It's harder to replenish. He's spacing them out. So he'll hold this. Meanwhile, Cham is on 5 bases and now tech switching to Broodlords, which don't really have an answer. And the battle mech style that we had has now become turtle mech off of a depleted income. Like he's mined off his main and natural. His third is getting low.
3rd and 4th base, and the only saving grace for his 4th base is that he keeps losing his SCVs, so it's actually not mined out yet. Not exactly the saving grace you want to hear usually.
No.
Finally getting some counter damage done. Kills off 5 workers, maybe? Yeah, 5 workers on the other side of the map. Like you said, you're playing from behind in this situation. It's already going to be hard to come back at this point, so everything that Vindicta does, it's just going to look silly.
Yeah. Scans, sees the Corruptors, and actually Cham's feeling so confident. He's like, all right, you can also see them morphing into Broodlords. So he morphs, what is that?
16
12.
or 12? No.
12 Broodlords. Wow. Okay.
Not bad. And now the Death March begins as Cham makes his way across the map with the ever so slow Broodlords. Vindicta going to start up 3 Thors and a Viking. I think he has a reactor on that starport too. That is... not sure if that's actually still going to be enough, though.
No. And here's the thing. You can go ahead and cultivate an army that maybe it responds to the 14 or so Broodlords that are there. Cham has such a massive bank. He could even, if he wanted to, he could be prepping up Ultras right now, but he's not going to. But the return will be 200 Roach Hydra Viper again. And then what? You have like 6 Thors and 8 Vikings. This is all hypothetical. Let's say he survives with that.
And that's if those Thors survive.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
This is, Well, Vindicta going to do another one of these Hellion run-bys. No actual drones at this base. He does find a few as they're transferring, but not going to catch them. All the Hellions end up going down, so that's just a few less Hellions to deal with the Broodlord Broodlings. And they're almost there. They're almost to this side of the map, and Vindicta is floating over his main base to try and become a 5th. I think that is where Cham is going to finally lay down the law.
Good angle over here. He knows that the 12, well, I guess we'll call it like the 3 o'clock expansion had something floating towards it but did not get established. So this is going to be the point of interest. It's where the 4th base is, and hopefully, if you are a Vindicta fan, it's where the 5th base is going to be attempted to be had. So Cham circling around out there. He now is approaching 7K bank, by the way, and 3,000 gas. He's got a massive economy.
Yeah, that is a full Remax right there.
Yes.
Losing his entire army.
Several times over.
Yeah. Hellions running on by. There are a total of 3 drones kill at this base. And actually, yeah, the Broodlords are going to divert their attack angle to go defend versus the 3 Hellions. Those Hellions do back up in fear for their lives.
Yeah, and they're buying time somehow. I'm not sure what Cham's waiting on because he's absolutely maxed. And you're not waiting for a bigger bank, so there's no upgrades finishing up here. He's going to add a couple infestors. This actually becomes in a weird way, the only chance that Vindicta has is he too is now maxed out. He somehow limped himself into that position. But Cham's got nowhere else to go but forward, and hopefully he's not going to chase like 5 Hellions or something like that because it's got to go.
Yeah, this is kind of turning into Goku telling Frieza, hey, you know, I want to fight you at full power. Let's do this. I'm going to shatter your confidence.
Yeah. I get that reference, kind of.
That was a good show.
That's the Dragon Punch One Man, right?
Exactly, yeah. You got it.
That's what I thought.
See, if there's
People
one
say I'm not very
thing,
hip, but I know my stuff.
There's only one kind of show that I can probably out meme you on.
It's Naruto Ball, right?
I'm not sure if familiar.
Naruto Ball Z? I heard of that one.
Haven't heard of that one.
Okay.
I'll check it out.
Do you ever watch the old anime, At Kira?
Oh yeah, Akira?
At Kira. A-T-K-I-R-A.
No.
It's about a man and a woman in a scooter bike. It's pretty good.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Quite fitting for the
This is a terrible fighting.
fight.
I don't know what anyone's thinking here.
Yeah, Cham's Broodlords are just going to go completely untouched because there's only siege tanks that did decide to siege up and try and deal with the Hydras at the front line, but then they end up friendly firing each other versus the Broodlings. The Thors still survive, and Vindicta is actually going to just maybe back up and build up a little bit more. He did manage to establish another one of these bases.
Yeah, but as the others are mining out, he has no bank. He's producing. He's going to be able to remax, but he's living paycheck to paycheck at this point in time right now. He is a too real. Never mind.
Did he? I'm actually amazed. He's gotten up to +3 weapons and +2 armor off of just 1 armory.
He's got a big boy army. He's gotten there. It's just Cham's. This is interesting. It's
He's
like
patient.
Patience a word for it. Patience definitely a word for it. He was hitting 10k minerals, and he did just lose like 40 supply and had to remake it, and still has more gas than before that. Because his economy is so stupid right now. So spread your Broodlords. Put some stuff in front of him so the Thors can't get on top, because there's no tank count here either, by the way. Fungal it and just end the game. And abduct, too, if you need.
Okay, here we go. Broodlords finally making some progress in making their way over to the mineral line. Broodlords a little bit clumped up. The Vipers starting to go for some pulls, trying to get on top of those Thors, pulling them in to range of maybe some of those Broodlords, but...
He's not using the AoE anti-air, by the way. I guess he wouldn't, so it's fine to be clumped. The Abducts here are really good. These are all units that can basically not be replaced. You can see the supply of Vindicta dropping.
Yep.
Even as he's making more stuff, he just can't afford it, actually. He's going Ghost here, but good luck in there.
Yeah, I feel like the Ghost almost at this point, you need a lucky nuke to turn this game around.
Like probably a couple.
Can a Broodlord survive a nuke?
No.
Okay. I wasn't sure because Colossus survive a nuke.
Heck yeah, they do, man. They're awesome.
Planetary Fortress going to go down with a total of 41 kills. And that's going to be another base sniped off. Cham making his gradual retreat away from the base.
Just keep going forward, dude.
Vindicta trying to establish a base in the top right that is completely blocked by a creep, and he actually cannot afford any units up there.
That's what pollution does to beaches over there. That's why we got to stop it from happening.
Learn to recycle.
That's right. There's the 1 ghost. Oh, excuse me, there's 2 ghosts.
I think it sniped a Corruptor.
Yeah.
They then got transfused back up. And here we go, some blinding clouds being thrown down on top of the Thors. Each one of these Thors being picked off, and like you said, Jeff, these are not going to be replaced. Even with the Thors focus firing down these Broodlords, only a few of them end up falling, and in the end, it isn't Vindicta that's going to end up falling. GG.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be a silly commentary. He died like 10 minutes ago. He was putting up a fight, and that's nice, but StarCraft does kind of get to these weird situations where yes, you have an army. Yes, you're mining. So for a lot of people, like, well, in the spirit of the game, you should keep fighting. And I believe in that. That's absolutely correct. I'm not like maligning him for staying in this. It's just, it is a funny situation because there is so few things that he could do to win from there. It literally takes Cham helping him by bunching everything up, and then, like you said, a nuke or like
Yeah, yeah.
something
It
weird.
requires a mistake. It's not just on you anymore. It's also a little bit on your opponent.
Because like literally the resources it would take to push out onto the creep and to stop one of the like 5 fresh bases he was mining off of 80 drones is hard to imagine. So hopefully in this game, Vindicta, if he does go the route of a timing attack, does damage so that his transition is not exposing his soft underbelly as bad as this game did. Because he's good. We've seen some level of play from him. I mean, he was holding on, kind of, while facing a 7 or 8K bank, 80 supply difference. His mech is obviously very good.
And that entire game going that long was off the back of, as you said, a timing attack that happened at the 6-minute mark, the 5.5-minute mark, with Marauders that had concussive shells.
Killed.
4 drones killed with
0. No, you said 0. I think you actually showed it.
Oh, no, sorry. It was 0 drones killed. He killed maybe a couple of the queens or something.
Yeah.
But it was 3 Marauders, a Medevac, and a bunch of Hellions that did virtually no real economic damage.
Yeah.
So he was playing from behind from that point on. If you can get into one of those games, maybe from a situation where he's not playing from behind, then maybe he has a good shot there.
They wait for us to say go.
Yep.
Like that, but I also don't.
We're always ready.
Thank you guys for joining us. It's been a lovely day. We had a really contentious European group at the beginning of the day, I would say, with some good results there. We'll talk about that after this broadcast, of course. And tomorrow, we're still doing a whole nother doubly. It's another group of Europe, another group of the Americas. Is Neeb playing tomorrow?
I believe Neeb is, in fact, playing.
This is the final round of 32, right? Like, or we wrap it up tomorrow.
No, there's 8 groups.
Oh, my God.
It's 4 times 8 is 32.
No. Don't ask me a math question.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I know the answer to that, but I still will not answer at all. The off chance that I don't.
All right, starting up here at the top left, we have the blue Terran player. He is Vindicta. From Dust. And starting down here in the bottom right, from Chivo, he is the red Zerg player, Cham.
Cham looking to advance outside of the group, keeping everything normal. We've had no upsets in results so far. Upsets in games, even series, but not in who's come out, I would say.
Yeah. Got an early pool over here from Cham, though. I think this was a 14 pool or something along those lines with a gas taken right behind it. So looking to get some damage done, maybe the command center on the low ground. Vindicta goes to the SCV scout, though. And this is usually, well...
Is it a scout?
Is it a scout? I think this is a normal pathing, actually, isn't it?
For now.
Yeah. We'll see. Making its way across the map. Actually, I can just check where the rally point is, I think. I don't know how to check what the rally point is.
Neither do I, so I'm laughing with you this time.
I feel like usually I'll see it. That's always one of those things where I feel like I see it on the ground half the time, and the other half the time I don't.
Yeah.
Never sure. But he's going to move into the main base and see a finished up spawning pool, gas being mined, and immediately think, okay, well, there are your lings. I just got to have my Reaper in position.
Yeah, it was kind of, you know, it gets him the high ground CC. That's all fine and good. I want to see if Cham throws a fake Aruski, because with that getting scouted, you don't anticipate getting any real damage in there. But so far, no. It's just like, okay, that's fine. Zergs have done a good job of this. It used to be in the past that if you, like, quote-unquote, forced a pool first or something like that, it was like, oh, my God, the Zergs so far behind. Not really. They're kind of comfortable with the later time. Transfusions and queens kind of making up the difference. That's okay.
Yep. 4 more lings on the way, though, and he did pull out a gas as well, so he's not going to be throwing down like a Baneling nest or going up and teching up to something else right now. 2 more drones on behind it, though, so it's just kind of interesting that after he knew he got scouted and his 4 lings are across the map, still decided to make a few more.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to have speed. So if a couple of Hellions start to come out, it's not bad to pick them off or something like that. Or if the Reaper's just like, okay, he's not coming over here, I'll just go across the map.
Yeah. Reaper pokes on forward, sees, okay, I don't see any lings down over here at the natural. Maybe it's safe to start moving that base over and also swap those add-ons, because the worst thing in the world is when you try and swap your add-ons and the lings are right beneath them. But 4 lings going to try and swing on in. No, actually, they're looking for the Reaper, maybe.
Yep. I would venture a guess that you are correct.
Reaper comes on forward, gonna see normal looking base, and I think he also did spot out that third base. So after seeing that early pull, sometimes Zerg players can maybe do something a bit cheeky, but hey, Reaper gets picked off, not killing off any Lings, so not bad.
Not bad. Pretty okay back and forth. I mean, obviously the Reaper is nice for the Hellions, so that would have been kind of cool. But at the same time, that was his first time out on the map, except for the SCV as well. So it is important to see that, okay, he is going for a third. There's not roaches coming across the map, that kind of thing.
Well, the 8 Lings, if they are well split up, and it seems like they are decently well split up, maybe trying to jump in, get a Hellion, not able to do so. Goes after the Marine, gets that.
That was a bit silly. I mean, it kills the guy that's killing the Overlord, I guess. So never mind, not as silly. But he does lose 7 of the 8 Lings, I think.
Yeah. And there is going to be stim on the way. So Vindicta not going to be going into the mech memes this game. And that also means that Overlord's life is still probably not long for this world. Yeah. But Cham will get a scout on that. And seeing the tech lab on the barracks is all he really needs to see. If he saw it.
Yeah. Bit of a, I mean, with where it is now, it's really nice. The kind of funny thing is it still could have been Hellions coming off the factory. And then so far, a barracks for him would represent Marauders. But at this point in time, we know that it's more than that. And he's seen that himself as well.
Yeah. All right, the rest of the Hellions making their way to the front lines, ready to try and clean up some of that creep if it starts going down that ramp. But a Roach Warren being added on this game for Cham.
Things were coming in on a rescue mission.
Well, he is buying time. The Marine no longer attacking that Overlord.
No, lost interest.
Yeah, just focusing on the Hellions, trying to pull those back to deal with the Lings. And that actually, in and of itself, is really nice, because now the Queen's getting even more space to spread that creep, get it going, and give himself a lot more space for that third base.
You know what one of Pig's favorite units in the whole game are?
Would it be?
Roaches.
Not seeing drones. There's a lot of Lings. I think Cham's going to go for that classic Roach, Ling, Ravager. Emphasis on the Ravagers. And, you know, Vindicta's out here. He's got a chance at seeing it coming, but how well is he set up for it? He's going to have a tank coming out. Minimum bio. That's not the stuff of dreams, I don't think.
The Lings, funny enough, are also pushing back the Hellions from scouting out the Roaches. Roaches start to reveal themselves. Sees a handful of them. Is he going to be reading off of that, and is that enough?
Man, the kind of question is, did he see him?
He saw 4.
No,
he had vision of 4.
Did he see him? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's not adding bunkers. I don't know. It's tough.
One Banshee is going to be helpful. Siege tank also popping up and being on the ramp.
Banshee's a big deal. I love this attack, by the way, with 4 Queens and a Drop-a-Lord. I think that's such a cool thing to add to it.
That's a really difficult thing for the Terran players to defend to. Oh boy, Banshee nearly dodges out of that Corrosive Bile. Corrosive Bile going to be on cooldown now, so can't go after that Siege tank either. Starts to jump on it, gets a couple of them down. That's that.
But behind this is drones. So the Banshee alone, you can see the strength of that. A lot of times people talk about this. And I was almost wondering, as the attack was developing, would he add a second Banshee? But no, he's gone towards Medivacs, and just the one Banshee shooting Ravagers really cuts this attack at the knees.
And you can see that Cham going for so many Roaches, getting up the Ravagers. There was a lot of gas invested into that attack. So it delayed things like his lair, and now he's going to be facing off against the push here from Vindicta with Stim and combat shields nearing completion, +1 weapons nearing completion. He's going to have a Bailing Nest on the way, but oh, actually interesting. Anti-armor missile being used on the Queens.
He's going for this. Hellions and Bio Marines coming in. They're on top of the space.
There's not a lot here for Cham.
No, and not a lot coming out either, I don't think. It's 10 more Roaches.
Yeah, and these
no speed, though.
Yeah, the Roaches aren't going to have speed. They aren't going to have any upgrades whatsoever. The Bailing Nest is also still finishing up. Queens finally have their anti-armor missile expire, and the Queens on the back focus firing down these Medivacs. Vindicta loses one of them. The other one's starting to get a little bit lower, and Cham is starting to push this back.
He will defend, and in the midst of it, he's actually banking money, which has got to be a little bit of a thorn in the side of Vindicta, because after this, he's going to have money to spend, for Pete's sake. It's not even like broke or anything like that. Good defense, basically off the Queens getting to a back position and transfusing each other and just staying alive. Waiting for those 10 extra Roaches to come out and be enough to push this back. But behind this, Vindicta did take his own third, which is kind of a breath of fresh air. In the previous game, it was hard for him to get out and expand, and this time he's got this down pat.
Well, Vindicta in the mech series was trying to go for a lot of those Hellion run-bys and stuff, but if you're going for bio, it's going to be all about that drop play, moving in along the bottom side. And this might actually work out a little bit better just because there's not creep spread exactly going super far south, so it might be able to catch Cham a bit off guard. Catches Cham off guard with 2 of the queens getting picked off by this medevac.
Not a bad move here. Roach is still coming out in force, though, so you're going to want to keep your eye on that tank production, because right now it's mostly Marines. You can see 1 Marauder getting queued up at a time, and then the 1 tank. Now 2 tanks.
2 tanks now, yeah.
That's quite good.
Marines starting to move forward into the main base, picking off a couple more of these queens, or at least 1 of them. Focus fires down the second one, and he's going to sack a few Marines for it. Scouts out the infestation pit as well, and that is immediately going to be a tip-off. Hey, my opponent's starting to think about that hive tech.
You know, hive tech, maybe swarm host. That's something that some of these guys are doing.
Yeah, how do you feel about swarm host versus bio? Because I feel like I've seen a lot of swarm host versus mech, not as much versus bio.
Everyone says it's pretty bad. I think it is, but Cham's just an aggressive player. It definitely should be hive. True. I think you're right. The Viper play has been quite abundant and very good here.
Sensor tower coming on up here for Vindicta is going to give him a little bit more advanced notice about any kind of roach run-bys and that kind of stuff. 2-2 also finishing up over here. So he's going to try and make his push along this north side. There's a lot of creep spread that he has to get through to make his way over to that 3rd or 4th base. But this is also going to kind of act as a way to potentially defend his 3rd unless these rocks get knocked down.
Yep.
Cham going to have a chance to counterattack.
Showing up here. Could be a pretty big surround.
Oh.
Tanks are going to get exposed, I think, flank.
Super exposed, and the Roaches and Ravagers even winning versus just the Marines on the south side. That was terrible for Vindicta.
Yeah.
That could not have gone worse.
And the Dorito cannon being expelled there, excuse me, means that it's just that much less energy for the defense. Down to 2 supply there.
Yeah. Almost gets that Raven, but he's still going to be able to push in here. And there is 1 siege tank further back. I guess a couple of siege tanks further up high on the high ground, but not exactly covering the mineral line right now. And these Ravagers can continue to whittle away at that command center.
Yeah, even just the depots there's a loss. He's actually supply blocked by quite significant margin. If you look at the production tab, he's building 2 depots, but only just now. Nope, never mind. He lost enough to go ahead and fall below that.
Doing a little bit of a favor there. Corrosive Vial is going to be able to come down on top of this Bioforce. They've got to either back up or Medevac's actually going down instead. Cham trying to bust his way up a ramp against siege tanks. Doesn't quite actually kill the siege tanks either, so he's losing a lot, but he's also killing a lot.
He's just killing more. Going up the ramp was a bit expensive, but he can afford it. He's on 4 bases, and he is making the Terran make the hard choice of picking up what they had at the 3rd base, and they're losing units. And that's the nice thing about Roaches. If you're fighting Marines, unless there's some huge X-factor number of Roaches, or excuse me, tanks behind that, you're probably trading pretty good, at least. They do fall off later, but in this stage, the Roach Ravager composition is king. It's really good.
Siege tank sieging up just in the nick of time to try and help take on this fight. Only a single Corrosive Vial goes down on that siege tank, so it is going to survive. It can maybe be repaired back up. I believe another medevac made its way along the north side, but it's even got to work its way through some creep, giving Cham a bit more time to react as he also continues to push on in, disabling this command center once again.
Yep, exactly right. Every drop is getting some damage in, but it's having to walk over creep, so it's being spotted. Picking up and waiting to come back later. I do like this move, though, and you have to kind of stick to this, right? Like, if he's not harassing, if he's not dropping or something, then he's just going to get clobbered by a maxed out Zerg army over and over again.
Yeah, just buying space is the only thing that Vindicta can really focus on doing right now. Like, gets up that economy once again, but Cham getting up the Spire means that medevac harassment might be a little bit harder. The Hive Tech is also done, so Vipers are now an option. Those siege tanks not going to be quite as useful, and heck, even just pulling in medevacs that get off into the distance like this will be an option as well.
3-3 finishing up, though. I will say that. Look at the upgrades. 2 Carapace and 1 melee are queued up here. 3-3 is a big deal.
Yep, and hey, Focus Fire's down. The Greater Spire going to completely reset that. Forces out a cancel there.
Not bad.
And doing some damage over here. He even got a Liberator joined in the fray, so the Marines not just totally by their lonesome. Drones almost getting hit by the Corrosive Vials, but dodging out of that. Medevac just buying some time, like you were saying before. Doing a great job of that.
Yeah, to be a little bit critical of Cham, he's just now remaking that Spire that we saw lost a second ago. He could probably do well by like making a Hydroden or something, because otherwise, by only staying on this, it's still okay. I still think Cham's way ahead, but more drops, more harass, tanks coming out 2 at a time, Liberator's starting to come out here. If Vindicta can establish his own 4 bases and start to push towards a 5th base, and Cham is still just running around with Roaches and Ravagers, that is the scenario where a Terran player could win.
Yeah, and not even super well upgraded Roaches and Ravagers. +3 armor is on the way, sure, but like you said, 3-3 has been finished up for Vindicta for a little bit now.
More great harass here, and the Medivacs are just not dying. So they're killing 3 or 4 things, they're canceling a building here or there, and then they're picking up and doing it again.
And Vindicta has not had to deal with an attack from Cham for a solid 2 to 3 minutes now. And you're seeing what he's able to do when he's just able to keep Cham totally on the defensive. He reestablishes his base. He's got more of these Liberators coming out. He's got Ghosts on the way, ready to deal with any kind of greater Spire tech, anticipating that Cham is still thinking about that.
Now this one got a little bit auto-queued. Anitis, thing where Terran players will just be like, you just go do this thing, I'll look somewhere else. And it doesn't end up super great. Infestor's kind of joining out here as well, and I like that. It doesn't have to be 10 Infestors. A couple of Fungals on a big Bioforce can take a fight that otherwise would have been, you know, equal or maybe less favorable, and make it a gigantic win real quick.
Yeah, but here is the big push out here from Vindicta, finally putting an end to just the mild drop harassment and saying, okay, time to actually kill one of these hatcheries. Sims down the ramp is going to find that hatchery, and the Infestors are not quite here. 2 of them out on the map right now. And if they find this bio, catch them by surprise, that could be really scary spot here for Vindicta's army.
Yep. Some more text, which is kind of happening here too, by the way. I didn't notice this happening, but Baneling's speed is there. I think Vipers are actually out, and the Greater Spire is coming to completion. So Cham held on, which sounds weird given how far ahead he was, but he's held on to this point in time. And now we're going to have the big fight here. He's going for a big surround. The Bioforce only aided by 2 Medivacs, huge concave of Roaches, but the tanks on the high ground packing quite the wall. Going up that ramp would be very cost ineffective, as Cham does, quote unquote, win the fight, if you will, but I mean, it's hard to even call it that. And we actually have a nuke coming in here too.
Yeah, nuke coming in the natural, and Cham seemed like he noticed for a second. He is going to pull all of his workers away. Greater Spire going to take some damage from that, so we end up seeing it come down. Greater Spire at almost 25% of its hit points. And the drop still staying alive on the north side. There's a drop in the main base. Vindicta is pulling Cham apart.
Yeah, not bad.
You're gonna right-click that down. Your Corruptors weren't done, so you could morph in the Broodlords in time. He just taps out. GG.
Oh my god.
And Vindicta, he pulled him apart.
Actually, if I hit rewind, something about this mod, it actually doesn't show the armies. It's too bad.
If you hit B, it'll rewind it 10 seconds. Because right when the game ends, it'll just fade to black.
No, it's just not even showing army. Okay, there's the army. This is not Idra level GG, but it's bad.
It's bad, but yeah, I understand.
It's bad.
I understand the tap out a little bit. He had a bunch of Corruptors just made that
7. They could chase down Medivacs to stop the drop harass.
That's true.
He has an overwhelmingly powerful ground army. He had his 6 o'clock base denied, but he still had 3K bank and 1,000 gas. So, like, listen, there's going to be people that are like,
that's true.
Jeff's crazy. Of course he was dead. No, he was not. Absolutely he was not. He was at best behind, but I would still be like 40%, 45. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cham, ultimately, these guys are the bosses of their own world, right? So if Cham says he's done, he's done. But this is the last best of 3, and I would prefer enduring the in-control teasing for staying in too long as opposed to the in-control question of, like, should you leave there? Is that when you leave? All right.
Yeah, maybe he just wants a mental reset, as that game was in his favor to gradually spiraling more and more out of his control for a lot of it.
Super frustrating. Absolutely.
So the mental reset may be part of what he was looking for, but I do agree with you. He was definitely starting to get into that kind of weird spot where he did have some things he could make work, but just chose not to.
I don't think, I mean, you know, it's our job to talk about these things, so we can just put it out there and you guys can have your own opinions. But, like, no, it is a mental reset, but it was premature. It's out of, like, anger of sorts. It is a frustrating situation in the game, but Vindicta got away with one there. Like, he could very easily still lose that game if the Corruptors do shut down all the harass that was happening. And the ground army, which was already established, is at 178 supply. with 3K, 1K bank, or even more than 1K, I thought, he very reasonably goes on from there and builds the army he wants. So it's tough.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, we move on to Automaton for game number 3. It's going to be on top of the blue Terran player that we start. It is Vindicta from Team Dust Gaming. And his opponent's spawning down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. The red Zerg player. He is OSC Elite, or sorry, Chivo's Cham.
And, you know, not to beat the dead horse too much, but to go back to your point, as a former player and just people that's been around players, I don't know that there's much of a mental reset when you leave a game and then 15 seconds later you're in the next one. There's not...
That's fair.
You could ask for a couple minutes, I'm sure the admins would give you if you get really mad to get up and walk around, but 99% of players, the mentality, which I would argue is actually a fairly unhealthy one, whenever they lose, they're like, go, 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 get in the next one, go, go, go. And they'll start like yelling at the moderator or the mods too, and be like, yeah, let's go, come on, why are we waiting, let's go.
Almost like the rage queue on the ladder.
Uh-huh. Which is a real thing. I experience that myself all the time, but you know, we're speculating. Maybe Cham is totally fine. Maybe he absolutely is comfortable with the decision to have left that last game. That is his right as a player. I think, like I said, a lot of people would probably say he was behind. I personally almost don't even want to say that. And if he was, it was like, for me, 50-50 or if not slightly in favor of Cham. But it was frustrating. It was the second time his Greater Spire was denied. Those drops were getting a lot of work done. There was Liberators picking up drones, so maybe he thought he was more behind than he was, or he was just sick and tired of Vindicta's harassment. We'll
see what happens on Automaton if Vindicta... I mean, that bio style definitely worked out really well.
Oh, yeah.
He was doing great with that. I'd love to just see that again. I know that I see a lot of mech on this map, but that bio style was just so effective versus Cham in the late game.
His level of play is great. You know, like I said, we said this yesterday, and I'll say it again, but like, we kind of meme during the North Americas, especially in the round of 32. There's usually a pretty almost unhealthy mix of like Scarlet and then someone that is making an appearance, but they're just levels below these people. So it ends up being kind of silly games. That's not been the case today, not really at all. I mean, even Demi, I think, would be fairly happy with his performance, but Vindicta here has been the real shock of this group, where it's a ladder guy. He's got a bit of a spotted past, and yet here he is going toe-to-toe with Kalazur and Cham and doing all right.
All right, Reaper making its way forward and trying to get little bits of harassment done, pokes its way up into the main base because Automaton, nice map for those Reapers. You got a nice cliff edge to try and jump up into that main base. Queen can just try and position itself to deny any additional scouting information. Not that there's too much to scout right now. Well, it's going to be the pretty typical 1-1-1 setup over here for Vindicta. Not opting to go for anything kind of any mix up like a 2-1-1, as I think only really Koreans do that anymore.
We'll see.
For now, Cham getting up Zergling speed, pulling out of gas, taking a pretty quick third base. One thing I've got to compliment him on is his creep spread has been really solid. And Vindicta has looked really strong in the late game. It's sort of the mid game and the early game that I think he hasn't really been able to get as much done. Like his run-bys, his timing attacks, his creep start cleanup in the early game.
Yeah.
Not really there.
I absolutely agree with that. I think Vindicta's played almost half, if not most of his games from behind today, it feels like. And he's done a great job kind of dragging them back. But yeah, it has... I think about his TVZ against Demi, right? There's the one game where it was like the nukes and the strong late mech gameplay, to your point, that brought him back in that series, because otherwise he was actually behind. He had his army clobbered over attacking Demi's expansion, and he actually got counterattacked, and a bunch of Lings killed most of his SCVs, and yet he won that game. So impressive late game play, which is actually usually the opposite, right? Like most Terran players are strong early, weaker mid, and then fall off late.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice little difference there, and if Vindicta can have a good start for this game, then he might be in a really good spot moving into the late game and maybe lock it down even earlier. We'll see. Reaper moves on in, scouts out the main base, sees nothing super duper crazy, doesn't see a second gas guys or even scans actually. Wow, he is really paranoid about something maybe coming.
Well, that's the Cham profile. If you rest on your laurels for 1 second, there's a Nidus and Lings and Roaches in your base all of a sudden. In fact, that's a lot of queens, so I actually... There's 2 more queens queued up, guys. That is...
Going up to 8.
Very suspicious.
And 4 Spore Crawlers coming down. He did spot out the Banshee, and I guess maybe he's still thinking about the Hyperflight Rotor Banshees from earlier?
Well, it's just slightly more than 1 spore per base, so I'm not worried just yet. It's the 8 queens.
Well, yeah, it's both of them together. That's kind of funny. Well,
there you have it.
Banshee could have done a little more damage.
Shows up, taking fire, dead.
Cham is going to be happy about that, and he can safely move on to his lair tech, get up his Baneling nest, and not really worry too much more about massive Banshee harassment. And he even moves back in with the Overlord, sees single Marine that picks away at it, but most importantly sees Tech Lab no longer on the starport. I don't have to worry about any more Banshees. I can just chill back, make a few more lings, get up my Evo chambers, and drone up.
Yep, he sees its bio. Lair's about to finish, so I'm kind of almost holding my breath. The double Evo, though, however, kind of suggests that we're probably not going to see a Nidus Worm. That usually suggests mid-game, so maybe Spire play. That's something I've seen on Cham as well. Pass. That's unfortunate. Okay, it's bad.
All right, this Banshee taking little bits of damage, but there's no Overseer out just yet. And Banshee's out of energy, so it doesn't feel like Cham even feels it. Oh, no, Vindicta. Keeps it alive.
2 more hatcheries. Wow. Wow.
So one's his 4th base, the other one being a macro hatchery over his main base. So
no Spire yet.
maybe Spire, yeah.
I still think it will be Spire, but my goodness, he's waiting a little bit here.
Making a decent number of banelings, maybe just anticipating that there is going to be a kind of earlier attack or some kind of push out over here.
The station pit. Ooh, baby. He might go straight to Hive.
Off of just lings and banelings?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think people did, and they go early Ultra.
Yeah, I remember. Back when the Ultras had a little bit more armor, and Zerg players' #1 goal in life was to get out an Ultra. It was a fun time. Not quite the same case anymore, but still absolutely a Hive Tech can definitely shut down an unsuspecting Terran player. Sporkle actually zones out the Medivacs for a little bit, and so does that Overlord. So instead, Vindicta goes to the low ground, catches a bunch of the Queens, no transfuses coming off till just now. Loses one of the Queens, forces the pickup. The Medivacs get out of there, losing a few Marines, but not too many.
Nice move. Baneling speed getting queued up here as well. 1-1 about to finish for our Zerg player. And it is going to be Hive. So there was a moment of hesitation for Swarm Host, but we kind of had this conversation last game, and I do agree. Swarm Host against Bio, pretty bad, especially in a game 3 here for the decision to move on. But going even to Hive's a little bit risky, right? Like last game, the big pain in his side was dropped, so I would have thought a nice Spire would be cool here, and that synergizes well with the Hive, because you can go Broodlords if you really want to, or Corruptors with Ultras is my preferred composition as opposed to just Ultras. I think just Ultras are actually kind of bad.
Well, for now, he's just going to have Zerglings in position and try and deal with some of the drops, but the Hellbat run by over on the bottom side of the map. His Armory, of course, finished up to get up 2-2, so hey, I got some Hellions left over. Let's make use of them. Roast a bunch of Lings. Of course, these Hellbats do get cleaned up, but killing a few Lings for the Hellions that weren't really doing too much anyways.
You sounded so happy for a minute there, Roby. I like that.
Whenever I see Hellbats getting cleaned up by Zerglings, it's like, okay.
All right.
I know that the Hellbats are getting some damage done, but it just looks silly to me.
A lot of Marines and a lot of Medivacs here out there, and I'm kind of silent because I'm just keeping my eyes glued on that production tab. I'm just a little bit curious as to what's going on. And it is going to be that Ultras Cavern. Again, I would have loved to Spire right now. But he's just going to, this might be the old school, just like show up with 6 Ultras and a whole bunch of Lings. And man, if you don't have a bunch of Marauders and a wall in and tanks, you're just dead.
Yeah. If you can afford it, he definitely has a little bit few resources available. Maybe saving up for these Ultras as he was just cleaning up this drop. Not going to work out over there. But yeah, 2-2 is what I was going to say. Would be really nice to pair with those Ultras just because, especially the armor upgrade, really gives those Ultras an extra little oomph.
Oh, yeah.
Vindicta going to be setting up his 4th base, though. Has some time, transform that into a planetary fortress. Make it a lot more difficult to break, but with this many Banelings, that also can just be a bit of a concern.
Yeah.
Just jump on in. Doesn't matter what kind of damage you have.
Look how passive and defensive Cham has been, by the way, too. He's got his army split into several segments. He's just looking to defend and hold on to Ultras. And then I imagine he'll turn on the gas. He's just going to become very aggressive from there.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, too, because he is, like you said, doing this off of no real form of anti-air besides just the Queens. He's finally got some Vipers now. was going to pair it well with the Ultras, as they can Blinding Cloud and kind of pull any of those high-value units further forward. But Bioforce on the south side of the map also just continuing to pick away. But really, Vindicta has not been able to get the same, anything close to the same level of damage as last game.
And now the Vipers are going to go ahead and start working away at these medevacs. Is it enough?
Slow parasite bomb death. Yep. And there's one extra.
Both do end up going down. And that'll be nice anti-air. And the Vipers, of course, aren't just relegated to anti-air. They can do other things as well. They're quite strong. They'll be able to grab and move around those Liberators. But that is the spot where Vindicta will either die or defend and then counterattack on his way to a surprise advancement to the next round. Because you don't, I mean, the thing about Ultras is they are good. They move faster now with their upgrade. They hit hard. They do have the armor. But they just don't get around stuff very well. They're not good at attacking bases because buildings can block them up. But right now I'm looking at Vindicta, and those depots are cool. I need more. I need more of that. That needs to be over at the other base.
Funny enough, that is the other bases where Cham is going to end up attacking. He might still move up the ramp, though, and actually even bypass those two depots, go into, it would put him into a bit of a concave of siege tanks. The Zerg force on the left-hand side of the map, top left-hand side, looking to try and poke. He also has a massive force on the bottom right. I thought it was maybe going to try and pincer that fourth base, but decides to pull back and just move in from one angle.
Yeah. Interesting. They'll be fighting through a field of Liberators there, but not a dense one. Not super dense. It's 4. It's quite a few.
And with the Viper energy, he does have the ability to just pull those Liberators out of position. Suddenly, they're not really doing as much. Banelings come rolling on in. The Ghosts not even getting an opportunity to snipe immediately, and they are pretty much all dead.
Yes. Supplies are kind of even, though. And again, this is where the Ultras are funny, because like when everything else dries up, Ultras by themselves die pretty for free. Does kill 15 SCVs, but the counterattack's pretty strong here, at least in theory. He's going to pick up and leave. Getting that planetary was nice. Getting the 15 SCVs, that was nice too.
Kills a couple more drones with Liberator or deny some mining, but yeah. Well, at the end of the day, like you said, killing the fourth base is about as much as Cham accomplishes, and I guess also resetting the ghost count a bit, so the Ultras have a bit more viability. But
you really got to set for Ultras. The tanks were kind of clumped up. The ghosts were all clumped up. Like, Banelings were getting pretty big hits on a lot of stuff there. And that's on the Terran player. That's on Vindicta. Like, if you spread out, if you have the tanks behind various different depots and stuff like that, and then it's taking Banelings and Ultras to kill, like, individual tanks, you trade out better there. You're never going to just, like, flatten an Ultra army. Not usually. But if you can trade better, that's where you actually win the fight.
It is interesting now that he is finally adding in Corruptors, and he's getting +1 flyer attack and not getting up a Greater Spy right now.
I love this army. This army's great. If he's going to go Liberators, cool. You abduct. Because that was the thing, too, right? He abducted, but there was actually no Queens or Hydras there, so the Liberators didn't die. They're just out of position. Now with Corruptors, they all die.
These Marines going to try and get some damage done, but even the medevac is going to get chased off into the corner. Cham really not giving up pursuit on a lot of these medevacs. I think he's kind of had enough from that last game.
Yeah.
Going to chase it down to the very corner. Finally pulls back, just going to let the Corruptors handle it.
We're going to try. It's a big, deep corner over there.
Where did the medevac even go?
I think it went back.
Oh, it's over here.
Home-ish.
Close enough.
Good enough, right? Yeah. If they're going to give up the chase.
Oh, Liberators siege up, but the entire army just walks straight past them, and now the Liberators are doing absolutely nothing. Couple of Ghosts trying to get some snipes off. They do soften up some of the Ultras, but honestly, wow, the Banelings also try and go into the planetary, but not actually finishing the job. They do go after the SCVs, and that is going to seal the deal. Cham now setting up about 30 or 40 supply, starting to push on through, killing off another one of those bases. Was that the main base? Not quite the main base, but
love to see the Corruptors clean up these Liberators, excuse me. That's basically all that Vindicta's holding on with. This drops, okay, whatever, it's going to slow this down.
Oh, wow. That base is pretty low.
Where's the Ultra? Oh, he died. Or not Ultra,
the
Ghost.
Ghosts. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what the Corruptors were doing there, actually. Are there still Corruptors, or did they die somehow?
No, there's still 9 Corruptors.
Yeah,
They're still running around. They're cleaning up drops and stuff. They may have actually pulled back to deal with the drop in the bottom right if we went back in.
But it would have been nice to kill the Liberators. Like I said, that's it. Liberator count's kind of high, right?
Yeah, it's up to 8 or 9 at this point, or I guess down to 6 now. still those Liberators with weapon upgrades.
Look at the effect, though. Look at the amount of ghosts, or excuse me, medevacs here, right? Because he's been dropping with what medevacs he does have, and then trying to get out all the Liberators he can.
These are the only two.
Yep. So he doesn't have a significant number, and that means that being able to kite the ultras is really hard because he's hurting himself as much as he is hurting the ultras when he stims and runs away.
Yeah. Another Ghost trying to move in over here for a nuke. There is an Overseer coming on by. Bailey's going off on that. Gonna shut that down, and I think that Cham is ready for another round of action.
Weird spot to fight, Ruby. It's a weird spot. What is he doing here? Why is he holding that location?
This is really wide open area to try and hold on to.
Yeah.
All of the Liberators just immediately get pulled and sniped off by the Corruptors, like you said originally. And this time, there is nothing is really falling back. This is an orbital, not a planetary.
Cham is marching his way on past this group stage. He will take second place, which is fine. Survives Vindicta here, who puts up a pretty darn good performance. But we're seeing a little bit of the green gills there. Like, why are you on the low ground? Why are you trying to siege that spot? And then not quite setting up for the ultras. And GG will be called out as Cham goes 2-1, makes his way into the second group stage.
Yeah, congratulations to Cham. He definitely had to work for it a bit today.
Yeah.
Facing off versus Kelazor and that kind of scary mech style. That was really cool to see. And even versus Vindicta's bio. Had a bit of a tough day, but he closed it out in the end.
Yeah.
He's going to advance on and continue our, I guess, current stance where even though we do see some kind of individual upsets in games or series, overall, the groups are kind of going and they end up with what we expected.
Exactly. The most memorable things for me outside of that is that, like, Skillus, and now I would add Vindicta to the list of these young players that are putting up good fights and showing some actual good skill, which has me excited for future WCS Challenger qualifications, stuff like that. So good luck to Vindicta in the future. But it is Cham that, you know, I want to see moving on. He's a guy that can take on some of the big dogs in the scene and hopefully show a higher level play as well.
Absolutely. We'll keep an eye out for players like Vindicta in the future, even if they're not going to be playing in WCS Winter anymore. But we did mention a couple of the other awesome players that have had some great performances throughout the past couple of days of WCS Winter. You can see over here, this was Group A, I believe, from the European segment. We had Euthermal and Rail advancing on out. Goblin and Bly, unfortunately, did get knocked out. But still a really awesome performance from Rail. I remember that was one of the big kind of results there. But Special and I think it was M. Canning making it out of Group A for the Americas section. M. Canning with a great performance. He was one of the, I wouldn't say upsets, but he was one of the kind of surprise things where it could have been one of the other people, and I don't think anyone would have been massively surprised.
You don't think so?
I think M.
Eric
Canning
advances over,
or Tootming.
Yeah.
I think if any one of those three had advanced, I would have been, oh, okay, I can see that.
Thank you. Now I don't have to wonder. I was like, geez, how would Ruby take that news? Now I know.
I'm so glad we established that.
It's good.
But of course, let's move on to Group B. That was yesterday's broadcast. We had from the European group, we had good old Mana and Hero Marine advancing on. Now, we did still have some great series from Skillus, and of course, Shadone gave his all, but unfortunately, both of those players could not advance on. And from the Americas segment, we also had two awesome players, Scarlet and Epic. Although I know Epic had a bit of an interesting series versus Expect. In fact, he messaged me immediately after the series and said, you know, Expect was the one that deserved to advance on, but I'm happy at least I still got the win. Bit of a messy series, but congratulations to those players as well. And I think with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for us today, because we've also finished up today's groups. In case you missed the European segment.
Jeez Louise.
We had a Laser and Hearthstone advance on, and I have to say, somewhat more one-sidedly. He definitely dominated their group over, I believe it was Starbuck and Braddock. And from the America segment, as we just saw, we already know that Kelazor and Cham advanced on. Vindicta putting up a fight, but unable to advance on out, and same for Demi. But that is actually it, as that is all of the results, and production is incapable of throwing more results for me to cover unless they want to throw up GSL results, which would be a big spoiler. And Jeff, we know that you hate spoilers. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
You're doing great.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got one more broadcast tomorrow before we go on a little bit of a break and resume the broadcast on Thursday of next week. But tomorrow we got awesome players such as Nee. Be sure to check that out at the same time as always. But until then, see you tomorrow.